Sandy Gerber, welcome to the Listening Bee. You are an award winning speaker, the best selling author of Emotional Magnetism, and also a TEDx speaker. And you've had over 25 years of experience helping leaders, teams, and everyday people master the one skill that can change everything, which is emotionally intelligent communication. So I am so grateful to have you on the podcast today, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Beatrice. I'm so impressed that you're having a podcast at 16. I mean, you're gonna take the world by storm.
Thank you. Well, it's such a gift to talk to people like you, and I can see why you've had so much success in helping people with this domain, but I would love to know, why don't you tell us some reasons why you think you've succeeded so well?
Sure, it's been a bumpy road. It has been a bumpy road, a lot of failures, a lot of meltdowns. But my gift, really, I think, on why I'm here on this planet is to help people to communicate better, and that happened, on a wild kind of journey. I started in marketing and communication, and for years I was with some big companies and doing lots of very exciting things. And I was succeeding by all accounts. But in my personal life, I was failing. And I was really failing at communication. I had a failed marriage. I was burnt out from all my work. And I'd completely given up on finding Mr. Right. Like that was not going to happen. So I dove into my curiosity was just insatiable. And I drove into 15 years of research and investigation to really understand what it is. How do we communicate to connect with people? What's the key to successful communication? So that drove me. And as that journey started unfolding, I started obviously learning a ton about myself and how I was communicating. And then I started learning these theories and practices, and I was able to just distill them into simple tools. Because if you think about it, Beatrice, not a lot of us have had formal communication skills training, right?
Right.
And we mostly learn how to communicate by failing at communicating, right? So that's how we learn. So many of us are just stumbling through. We might have, like you have an amazing mother who's done phenomenal success, and you've seen that journey firsthand. So that's formed your opinion of how to communicate and have a podcast at 16. And then there's others that are just maybe learning from their environment or their family of origin that unfortunately may not have been beneficial to them in how to communicate and have relationships. So we just know what we know from our environment. So
Yeah,
what I
that's
did sorry, go ahead.
no, I was like, that's fascinating how, when we're so young, that's what shapes how we see our environment when we're older.
Yeah, and you know what, Beatrice, it could only take like one comment from some adult or a friend, and you could take that a certain way, and that can set the trajectory for your whole life.
Yep.
And that happened with me, at a very young age. Someone made a comment, and I had that mean that I wasn't worthy. Now, I didn't come up with that language myself. I just had it mean that I wasn't of value to people and my voice didn't matter. And I was young. I was in elementary school at the time. And so I rather sat back and kind of watched people communicate their feelings and their expressions. And over time, I learned that actually those little phrases and sentences that people say to you, they're not even mindful most of the time of what they're saying. Right. And we take that to mean something. So this journey that I went on about communication, it became a passion of mine. I mean, I started sharing it with people. Like when we learn something new, we want to share it with the people we love. And so
Right.
I started sharing these techniques that I had learned, and people started saying, "Hey, that's really cool, Sandy. I want to hear that too." And that evolved into a book. And that evolved into then speaking all around North America on this and seeing people's relationships flourish. And the big piece is people are like, okay, is this just another self help book or another book that I need to read? No, it's actually a transformation. It's actually understanding yourself better and communicating with confidence about what you want and most importantly what you deserve in your relationships. So I started using these techniques. I'll share them with you in a minute, but these techniques I started using on a first date, right? I used it on a first date with my now husband of 11 years, and
Aw.
I absolutely adore him. We have a phenomenal relationship because our communication is strong and effective. And so it became my passion to help people. Look, if you just understand this about yourself and you share this about yourself and you use these simple frameworks, because there's a lot of tools out there that are confusing. If you just use these simple frameworks and share that with people, now you're more likely to have a connected conversation and then your life will bloom. So that started happening. People just loved the stories that I shared that were very relatable, because communication shows up everywhere in our lives, right?
Yeah. Everywhere. Wow. That is such an amazing story that you used it on the date with your now husband of 11 years. I love
Yeah.
this. Yeah, I would love to know the secret sauce because I know a lot of people my age and older, right now the dating world is different. Like after COVID, now there's a lot more things online and we're
Mhm.
texting and sometimes, like you were at that point in your life, you're just like, I'm giving up. This is not gonna work. But
Yeah.
what is your advice and what are your tips and tricks in creating that relationship like you now have with your husband?
Yeah, the first thing that you have to do is figure out what you're saying to yourself. Like, we can't communicate successfully with others until we know what we're saying to ourselves and the stories that we're telling ourselves. And now with technology, of course, it's even more pronounced.
Right.
So I always say to start, first of all, with what I call your thought flow. So we have tons of thoughts going through our head all the time. Like Queen's University did this research that shows the average amount of thoughts that we have in a day is 6,200 thoughts. Like,
Wow.
that's crazy. And of those thoughts, 80% of them are negative, and
Wow.
95% of those are on repeat. So we've got this like mental playlist looping in our head. And that's our thought flow. Like, we have thoughts coming through all the time. So you got to ask yourself, first of all, is my thought flow moving? Is there a nice flow to my thoughts? I'm seeing them, I'm recognizing them, I'm letting them pass. And that is really coming from a place of gratitude and intention. Or am I getting my thought flow clogged up with these worries and fears and self doubt and judgment, which many of us have? So we got to start there. You start with that. And that is the foundation of emotional intelligence. When you think about emotional intelligence, people are like, what is this thing, right? Some people refer to it as EQ,
Mhm.
EI, but what it is basically fundamentally is your ability to notice, to understand, and to manage your emotions and the emotions of others. And we don't really talk about that, especially in the business setting. We're getting better at that now, and it's part of my mission to help people. But once we understand how we're feeling, and then we're able to express it easier. So that's the big piece first is your thought flow. And there's a tool that I use, that is very popular. It's called First and Last. And it's really just a practice to start paying attention to what is your very first thought when you wake up in the morning. So before you've even taken your head off the pillow, you've opened up your eyes, what's the thought you're telling yourself? And usually it's, oh my gosh, I have this to do today, right? Or something.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that it's a conscious thought you're placing in your head because it sets the trajectory for your day. So I am capable, I am worthy, I am lovable, I'm whatever I am blank. That sets your day. And then the last thought of the day is critical as well. And science tells us that's really even more important because that thought is going into your subconscious while you sleep
Mm.
and it's working through possibilities for you. So, coming to a place, you put your phone down, you put your book down, you're lying in bed, just about to go into theta state in your mind, think a thought of gratitude and intention and take that into your sleep. Those end up like bookends in your day. And it's just remarkable how much your day will transform just from that one little tool. So that's a place to start. Because people will say, well, I don't really want to go into the pit. I call it the pit, where we lock up stuff that we're not ready to share. And everybody has one. And it's only with certain people will you let them have a view of what's in there. And sometimes we've been hurt or traumatized so badly that it's locked shut. So the key is to first be okay with thinking and evaluating what's going on in your mind. That's the first piece. Now, if you're on a hamster wheel and you're full of anxiety and stress, it's sometimes hard because it can exasperate that. But the key is to first start with that. And then the next thing that you want to do is a tool called the EQ switch. So think of it as the most important 7 seconds of your day. So it's force tiny moves and it's a massive impact. So the first thing you do is you take a EQ breath, that's what we call it, and it's 3 seconds in through your nose and it's 4 seconds out through your mouth. There you go. You're doing it with me. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, it regulates your nervous system. It calms you down. And so you want to do that right away and you'll keep doing it just to keep yourself. I do this before I get on stage. I do this before I have an important meeting. Even when I'm talking to my children, like if I have something trigger me, then I go into an EQ breath. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is this so important is to name what you're feeling. To actually not out loud, just to yourself, I am feeling blank. Now, it's really important because we have this thing in our brain called the amygdala. It's like this little almond-shaped piece in your brain. It's our panic button. And so if anything surprises us or catches us off guard or challenges us, that amygdala goes off in like 2 seconds. So what you want to do is when you name the emotion, science has showed us from UCLA, there's a doctor there, Dr. Lieberman, he calls it affect labeling. So effect labeling actually calms your amygdala down by 50%. So just by naming how we're feeling, we're calmer. And no one's taught us this stuff, which drove me nuts.
No.
When I started researching this, I was like, why are people not sharing this in an easy way? So, first step, you take your breath, 7-second breath. Then you name your emotion. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling unheard. Then the third thing you do is locate that feeling in your body because our emotions show up in our body first before our brain. So you could show up in a like a tight jaw, maybe your face goes red, your hands are clenched. So finding and locating that emotion in your body brings you into the present moment. So you're not in the what ifs or how dare they, you're focused on now. And the fourth step is to choose your response. So your emotionally intelligent response. See, because you've had that breath, because you've named your feeling, and because you've located it in your body, you're present, you're calm, and you're ready to reply. So that's the biggest tool that you could use at any point in your life because pausing alone is a huge way to stop the comments that come out that we regret, in the heat of the motion. So yeah, that's the EQ switch. It's powerful, powerful tool.
Wow, I'm so excited to use that from now on. I feel
Nice.
like I've heard a lot of people talk about, okay, deep breaths are good, label your emotions, all these things, but I love that you explain why because so many people are just like, okay, I'll try that, but they don't understand why. Like it calms down your stress response and your fight or flight, and then you'll be able to make smart decisions.
That's
And
right.
so, thank you for sharing that. That's such a powerful tool.
Yeah, it's funny because people will say, just like you just said, like people will say, oh, it's important to meditate or it's important
Mhm.
to take a walk in nature, but they don't tell you why. And I'm like a 3-year-old. I got to know why to everything. So even at my age, I'm still asking why. And I think the thing is, once we understand the effect of it, like this is actually going to help me to respond in a good way rather than react. We are all reacting. And especially in text and in emails and in technology, we are reacting so quickly, right? And if
Yeah.
someone doesn't, we get concerned as well. So thinking about the moments where, okay, I'm triggered, something's upset me, taking that EQ breath, naming what you're feeling, locating it, and then choosing your response is just something we've never been trained in, right? So
Yeah.
now it becomes, at first you're like, this seems weird. Like people are gonna think I don't know what I'm saying. And that's perfectly normal. New things that make us grow are difficult and uncomfortable at
Yeah.
first. So the more you do it, it's like a muscle. Now I can do it in 7 seconds. When I first started, maybe it was a minute and a half, where you're breathing so hard to just try and calm yourself down. But as the more you do it, the easier it gets. And
Yeah.
what's really cool is other people around you will start doing it too.
It's like a butterfly effect of happiness and calmness. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I
So
love it.
that's one big tool that I think when we to answer your question about what do we need to do to actually build these connections and especially nowadays with the way relationships are and dating,
Mhm.
it's very complicated, right? Like we've got just so many different ways to connect with people. And so connection is easier, but having a deeper connection is difficult,
Mhm.
right? Because we're just scared to be vulnerable. We're scared to share. And many, like I said, many of us haven't been taught how.
Yeah. Wow. I love how you're, like, putting everything together, like, this makes sense, and I'm so curious more how this would play into, like, relationships and how like, has there been, like, a difficult time when you or your husband or someone else, like, you're trying to talk to them and there's something that they say or you think and you just,
Uh-huh.
like you're like, "Ah, I can't handle it right now." Like, what do you do in those situations where sometimes you don't even think about 7 seconds and then all these
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, so it's a framework that you have to use over and over again to get better at it. But
Mhm.
one tool that I use specifically, and I train a lot of people in this, in difficult or necessary conversations, right? So
Yeah.
we tend to stay away from those. They're very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. We don't know what to say. And we've often spent a lot of time in our head thinking about what we're going to say. So the tool that I recommend there is called Honest Sandwich. So it's it's basically I make them easy and fun to remember, right?
I
So
love it.
uh, so it's a three-step process. So first, you're going to tell someone what you feel. Then you're going to tell them what you need, and then you're going to tell them what to do next. So you
Yeah.
think about it as feel, need, next. So let's use this as an example. So, say my husband has forgotten to bring something home and I've asked him to do it. And I'm like, seriously, forgot again. Now, we don't talk like that. But basically, let's say that happens in life, right? And so we're quick to judgment when something isn't done the way we want it to. And often we'll say a snarky comment instead of sharing how we're actually feeling. So this allows you, whether it's someone that's shouting at you or whether you're just talking to someone, this tool will always work. So let's say in that scenario, he's forgotten something. So I would say to him, hey, honey, I need you. I know you forgot that. I need you to understand something. I feel like what matters to me is not important to you. So what that does right away, when you tell them how you're feeling, it makes you human. It makes them
Mhm.
aware that you have feelings. We don't talk about our feelings and it's
Yeah.
okay to talk about them. So when you do that, it brings the conversation to a humane level that the person isn't expecting and isn't going to just be aggressive. Now, if they are, that's another whole conversation. But let's stay focused on this. So the first is to say, I need to understand, or sorry, I feel that what's mattering to me is not mattering to you. And
Mhm.
so I'm feeling unheard, right? So I feel blank. The second thing is to say what you need. So I need you to understand that when I ask for something, I'm counting on you to deliver it. And I need to know that I can count on you. So, what is it that it is? And so, what happens when you say what you need? Now the person has direction on where you're going. Because, see, a lot of the fights that happen between people are because we're not sharing our true emotions or our
Mhm.
true direction on where we want the conversation to go. There's a lot looping in our head and we're making up ideas and hypotheses of what's happening. And instead, when you're present and you're sharing how you actually feel, that person now is with you.
Yeah.
So, and then the third thing is to say, what do you need to have happen next? So, next time I ask you to do something, could you just be a little more mindful of my request? Now that's moving the conversation forward instead of backwards into blame. So it is, and just like the last structured tool that I taught you, it's important to work with this framework first, right? I feel, I need, and next. And like I had this woman tell me recently, she's a grandmother, and her teenager, 14-year-old granddaughter, was having some issues with her boyfriend. And the boyfriend was getting really jealous of her. And she was very uncomfortable with it. And so she said to her grandmother, you know what, I'm going to have to tell him that we need to talk. And she had just seen one of my Instagram posts where I'd say, do not use the words, we need to talk. And so she showed it to her. And the thing is, what she was going to do, when you say we need to talk, there's never a positive to that, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody's brain's going to go. It never, ever has meant I bought you a puppy. It's like, there's nothing positive coming
Yep.
out of that. So really you just want to refrain from using that phrase and instead say, let's have a discussion. I need to share how I feel. So I feel this way. So she's like, I feel uncomfortable that you're suddenly jealous of me. I need to know that you know how much I love you and that you can trust me. And next time you're feeling this way, can you come and talk to me about it? Now that's a totally different conversation than what would have been maybe an hour, 2 hours of uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
So this is the framework that you use in a tough or necessary conversation. And if someone isn't ready to hear it, it's easy to say, you know what? I feel overwhelmed today. I need some time to myself. Let's talk about this next after dinner. It's using the same framework. So feel, need, next. Really powerful tool.
Wow. That is amazing, and I think that it sounds like that clears up, like, the whole, thing that people think that people can read each other's minds, and we don't always realize that we're doing that, but we're thinking of things so often, and we're like, "Of course he knows that I want that." But no, that's how you need to use frameworks like these to actually communicate your needs in a relationship.
That's right. I mean, I can't say it loudly enough how we feel has to be expressed. We have to share how we feel. And with AI and with situationships and the way things are today in dating and in life, we don't do that, right?
No.
We are gravitating to AI because at all ages, but mostly teens are gravitating to AI because it's a sense of validation. It's not,
Mhm.
there's no judgment, there's no, it's available all the time, and it kind of helps you prepare for a conversation. But what's happening is short term, it's helping loneliness and confusion and lack of information. But long term, it's affecting your social skills. It's affecting emotional connection with people. And so, we know this. People are saying, oh, it's all about human connection. But you can't create human connection unless you have tools. And when you have the tools, then it becomes easier to just be authentic and be yourself and express yourself in a way that people can hear you. So, and when you get into the work environment, if we have teens right now that are just working with AI all the time, and I have some clients and people who come up to me at workshops in tears saying their daughter's best friend is an AI chatbot.
Wow.
They don't know how to parent that. They're full of fear that these people will never have human connection. And that's really what we crave as a parent. We want our kids to be loved and respected for who they are. So when we look at how communication is happening with technology, we need to be aware of the first most important place that we can support ourselves is understanding how we're feeling, and you can do that with a variety of tools like journaling or expressing to AI, even if you need to. This is how I'm feeling, just getting that out. So you're understanding that. And
Mhm.
then the most important thing is finding a few close people that you can
People.
connect with, and sharing those thoughts. And, in my life, as I started the conversation with you, I've had big ups and downs, like the failed marriage. I was a single mom. I've been fired before. Like I've had all the things in my life that really test you. And I'm grateful for every single one of them because it's really formed my character and it's led me to this path of helping others. The thing that I wish I had known at your age is that it's okay to feel the way that you feel. It's okay, to be scared and to be overwhelmed. You're in a world of craziness right now. And
Yes.
so it's okay. Just don't do it on your own. Share that with other people. If it's not your family, share it with your best friends, share it with a mentor. I read a ton of books to feel like I was connecting to something bigger. That helped me in my journey. So finding these tools, if it's this one or other ones, or listening to a podcast that's going to quickly give you a tool that you can use, I can't emphasize how important that is. We don't move and grow unless we start shifting and learning and using new things. So that would be my overall message for sure, is to make sure you're using some new tools.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. I
Mm,
think a lot of people need to hear that, and a lot of people my age too, I feel like we're pushing down or numbing our emotions because
mhm.
the world has become very superficial with social media and AI and just in school in general, so it's, like, not cool if you feel specific ways or if you do things like that, but to push that down is not healthy at all, right?
Oh no, yeah, it's really not healthy. And we're full of fear. All of us are full
Mhm.
of fear. I mean, and I remember the time, Beatrice, when my parents, I was 23, and I remember looking at my parents. We were at a family dinner, and I had this kind of funny look on my face. And my mom was like, she stopped. There were six of us at the table. She goes, Sandy, what's going on? You got this look on your face. I was like, well, I just kind of think you guys are cool. She got up at the table. She's like, hallelujah, she's back.
Aw.
But it was like when my parents became people, when they
Yeah,
actually became people. And, some of us have that earlier than later, and some never. But when the people around us, maybe it's not parents, maybe it's influences around us of other relatives or people that we work with. But when you actually see people for who they truly are, that's when we grow. That's when we learn who we are
yeah.
ourselves, right? So it's important to people are always saying to me, Sandy, how do I be more confident in my communication? First start talking to yourself that way, right? First
Yeah.
start telling yourself how you're feeling. Get that out in paper or in audio, or listen to some audiobooks to help you discover that. Because as I said earlier, it could just been one comment from someone that's
Mhm.
formed a story that you've told yourself for your entire
Yeah.
life. And it can be very limiting. So,
Okay.
so that, I think the key here is to remember that we're just people trying to do the best we can. And what we say to ourselves creates everything in our lives.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about how the inner critic impacts, like, everything you see around you, and that seems like it's the foundation, and it's, like, consistent that whenever you have a good relationship with yourself and you know, "Okay, I feel this way, I need this,
Yeah.
and this is what I want, this is what I don't want," then you can figure things out with people and things outside of you.
Yeah, and Beatrice, this leads perfectly into the book segue. It's such a fun conversation. The the so understanding what you emotionally need. So
Mhm.
again, coming back to emotions because they are the heart of everything. And
Yes.
if you want a successful, happy life, you've got to be in touch with your emotions. And especially if you want to lead others. So when I was doing the research, I found this book from the 60s. What it taught me was the emotional appeal theory. So without getting into too many details, I'll give it to you in a nutshell here. Essentially, the book is about four main motivators emotionally that we have that motivate us to do whatever we want in our life. So the way you act, react, and listen and talk all comes down to your emotional motivators. And there are only four. And so once we identify, and we usually have one or two of them. So once we identify what's emotionally attracting us, what we're magnetized by, if you will, everything starts falling into place. So I read this book and I was like, I was sitting down, I had the book out, the kids were asleep there. They were really little at the time. And I sat down to just read a couple chapters and I killed that book in one sitting because just like a good book, I learned about myself and I saw myself in those pages. And so what I learned was that of these four emotional magnets, I call them, um, there's one or two that are really strong in my life. And so I was so ignited by this. I went and told everybody, the book came to life, the speeches, the workshops, all that stuff. In a nutshell, there's four. So as I had marketing in the background, and I wanted to communicate this simply, it's an acronym SAVE, SAVE. And so there's four emotional magnets. The first is safety,
Mhm.
the second is achievement, the third is value, and the last one is experience. And so when you start looking at these four emotional motivators, you say to yourself, where are they showing up in my life, in my career, in my choices, what I enjoy as a hobby? All of that starts to show up. So, for example, my husband came home from work one night and I was working late too. And he's like, why don't you order some dinner? So I pull up the app and I'm skipping through and I'm looking through the app and I see, oh, I've got to order something that's in his comfort zone because one of his magnets is safety. Now, if you're motivated by safety, you need security, structure, boundaries. You like routine. You like the same things. So I said to him, "Oh, okay, I'll find something he likes." So I scroll down and I find Freshie. I say to him, "Oh, love, how about Freshie for dinner?" And he says, no." And I was like, "Wait, what? Like you love their burritos? What's going on?" And then I realized his other emotional magnet is value. He said to me, no, it's only 3 blocks away. He can't validate an expense of a delivery that's only 3 blocks away from our house because
Oh.
he's motivated by value. So he has to have worth and growth and a return on his investment in time and money. So, so I turned to him and I said, okay, yeah. Now, in a regular relationship, there would be a fight about this somewhere, right? Like, what do you mean? I said this. What do you mean? In this situation, I was able to just smile, acknowledge him for who he is and who I love and then say to him, "Okay, honey, just wondering, how far does it have to be for us to order the food?" And he's like, 5 blocks. So, okay, we ordered a place 6 blocks away. He's happy because he got something he liked, safety. He got it validated the expense, value. And I was happy because it was a new restaurant, which is an experience driven magnet. So, when you look at these different magnets and how they show up in your life, you'll start thinking about people in your family like, oh, she's driven by achievement, or he's driven by safety. He stayed in the same job for 20 years, or she's all about experience. She's lining up for the new iPhone, or she wants to do something new next, right? So you start to see these people in a different way. And when that happens, it gives you more empathy for them. You start understanding why they make the choices that they do. And most importantly, you understand what you need to be happy. So my two magnets are achievement and experience. So I do lots of things and I set goals and I want to get all I can out of this life, right? And those two things guide every decision in my life. So when I say back to me telling my date on my first date about what my magnets were, I said to him, "Look, honey, this is what I didn't call him honey at the time, but it was like, I said, look, you know what? You're signing up for achievement and experience. And what are your magnets?" And he was able to tell me really quickly what they were when I shared them with him. And we've been honoring that in each other ever since. So we don't fight because we understand the decisions people are making in our lives and why we're doing what we're doing. It's just what we emotionally need to be happy. So again, back to the conversation on understanding what you emotionally need. And when you do that and share that with the people in your life, it becomes so freeing and people accept you for who you are.
Wow. That was such an amazing story that you just took me through. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
my pleasure.
it's like peeling back the layers of people to see their core. Like, okay, this is what they
Yeah.
need. And then you can like serve that and then reciprocate back too, because it's like a balance.
That's right. Yeah, and it opens like what the best part of the book that I found. I mean, it's won 24 awards now. It's all over the world. And what I love about it is that I just shared my struggle and my journey and my love story. And it ignites opportunity for people and optimism that they can find it in their own life. And I
Mhm.
think it really helps people to understand that once you have just a few simple tools, you can make that connection happen at work and at home.
Yeah.
And it creates more empathy and ultimately more love and acceptance in this world. And boy, do we ever need that right now.
Totally. That is beautiful. And I just wanted to ask, so for someone young like me or around my age or a little bit older, maybe they're looking to date or find a partner, what is one thing or one question that you think that they should ask to someone new that they met to see if they're a good match and how to like build a good relationship together?
Yeah, it's a tough question because the communication, the way that you're communicating now, you're swiping, you're texting, you're
Yeah.
doing things like that. So it's very different. But I think at the end of the day, most people have their list, their list of what they want in a
Mhm.
partner, or like as they're getting older, they keep adding or removing things from their list.
Yeah.
I think you have one thing on your list, and it's really, do you understand yourself well enough that you can share what you need in a relationship? And I'm not
Mm,
talking about monetary stuff because at the end of the day, yeah, you want someone who has a job and da 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 da. But at the end of the day, you just want to be loved and respected for who you are. And that's the foundation of any good relationship at work or at home, right? Just respected and admired for who you are and honored for who you are. So the question that you would ask is, like you could use the magnets. There's a quiz in my book that makes it so easy. But you could say, I heard this thing the other day, and there's an actual chapter in my book about this. But there you can say to someone that I heard this thing, this new tool, and I understood myself better by using it. There's four magnets: safety, achievement, value, and experience. And I think I'm motivated by achievement and experience. What do you need in your life to make you happy? And just start that conversation. Now, some people will be like, whoa, this is heavy. And you're like, yeah, but that's how you're showing up in life, right?
yeah.
Like, do you want to be with people that think that's heavy? I don't know, move on to the next person. Or just have a conversation with someone that's going to take the conversation way past the surface stuff that's safe
Right.
and more into a zone where you can actually understand that person better. And I think the thing is, confidence comes with more self awareness. It
Yeah.
just, as soon as you understand more about yourself, you care less about judgment. And it's hard to say when you're young because I just wish someone had sat me down and said this when I was your age, right? Like my mom was a psychologist. And so I was interested in human dynamics and behavior, but we never had a conversation like this. And I would just love to be able to ultimately help people at your age and others to feel confident to have an interesting, provocative conversation. So, one of the things I teach, some people are like, all right, Sandy, I'm not going to say how I feel on my first date, right? Or my first conversation. That's okay. One thing that you can do is ask an honest question. So, honest question is basically an open ended question, one that you don't know the response to or predict the response, and one that's going to make the person really think about the answer. So, instead of saying, how was your day? How was your weekend? Why did you, shift from this to that? You could say, tell me what surprised you about the weekend. you don't know where that conversation's going. And that's interesting to people, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're actively listening to that person when they respond, you're going to make them feel seen and heard and valued. And that's what matters in life. So, asking an open-ended question, ask like my husband comes home all the time, I'll ask him a different question every day. He
That's
knows.
so fun.
But it's like it opens up great conversation, right? And then sometimes I'll say, "So did anything make you laugh at work today?" Like just little questions like that where you peek into their world and they're able to share authentically what made them smile. And I'll always find interesting things from that and the conversation goes somewhere else. So whether you're meeting someone for for the first time, dating, networking, uh, talking to a mentor, any situation, even in the grocery store. Like there's one time I was at a really low point in my life and it was about, I don't know, I was just struggling with work and all the tasks I had. And I was at the checkout line and came up to and put my stuff across. And this woman looked at me and she's like, "How are you doing? You doing okay today?" And she actually looked at me and I felt this moment of connection. And that moment of oh, I still get shivers. That moment of connection was so profound because she wasn't looking at the mom, the CEO, the speaker, the trainer. She was looking at a human being in a hoodie who was juggling bags of frozen broccoli and she cared. She just asked one question. And so for me, I never forget that moment because we have that gift. All of us have that gift that we can give to others, especially when the world is just, it's such a crazy place
Mhm.
to just even ask an open-ended question to someone, to share concern, to just acknowledge that someone is in front of you having a day
That's
and
right.
everybody has something going on in their life right now, right? So remembering that everybody's got that looping track in their head, the thought flow's going for everybody. How can you inject a question in there to make them feel seen and heard and valued? That's the biggest gift we can give.
Wow, that is so beautiful. Thank you for all the little, like, nuggets of golden wisdom that you've given today. I'm so excited to try all these new things with people, and
Yeah.
I love your, ideas about, like, open-ended questions, but I feel like they're deeper than open-ended because you can ask, like, "How's your day?" And then people are just
Yeah.
like, "Good. How are you?" "Good." But, like, asking, like, specifically, like, "What surprised you about today?" Like, that's awesome. I'm
Yeah,
gonna try that for sure.
oh, good, because, it's actually fun. Like, it
Yeah.
becomes really fun to come up with more provocative questions, and I think, like, I've had it actually change things in my life, right, where I've asked a question. Your intuition, after you do it after a while, your intuition will keep doing it for you, and you'll be like, "I never would have thought of that question that just popped into my head." So, it will deepen your relationships, your connections, and your opportunities. I mean, the questions that I've asked complete strangers who've become my clients, my friends,
Wow.
and that's really what we have in life is these connections and trying to just trying to feel more connected in this world, right? It's just so important right now.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, and are you ready for our previous guest's question?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
So cool. Okay, so this one is I think we answered it a little bit, but we can go deeper. What are you doing to change the world? And let's see, is there like a specific thing that you remember that really impacted you and you're like, "Ah, I've done this and I'm so happy that I've had this achievement and excitement and experience."
Yeah, it's I'm just thinking of, like, when I was in my 20s and 30s, it became about what I did was for achievements and for accolades and for really just reaffirming that I was of value. That didn't feel like success to me. So I kept wanting more and more and more. And it wasn't until I changed how I define success for myself that I felt successful in this world. And that always comes down to being of service to others. It is my passion to help people to communicate better because I know the struggle I went through when I wasn't doing it successfully. And I know the absolute joy that I have now from a phenomenal relationship in all my relationships. So, um, the success that I've had and how I'm changing the world is one tool at a time, one podcast at a time, one conversation with Beatriz at a time, and hopefully that echoes to other people. It becomes chatter for other people where they're like, I tried this tool and it works for me. I tried this tool and it worked for me. So by creating these simple tools, by simplifying communication and emotional intelligence, I believe I'm changing the world in the way that we creating a movement for people to have connected conversations. And ultimately, that will create love and acceptance in this world.
Yes. Well, you've definitely changed my life from this podcast.
Yay.
Thank you so
Ah,
much for
thank
everything. I'm
you.
gonna try everything out and experiment. So I wanted
Yeah.
to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and speaking with me today.
Oh, thank you for your passion, for your enthusiasm. You have a glow about you that is just going to change the world. And I'm thrilled and honored we crossed paths and had this chat together. So thank you,
Thank
Beatrice.
you.